Bish, bash, bosh. This is how Jumbo-Visma turned a sprint stage into a three-man time trial. We'll explain how it happened. You're looking at this profile, Paris stage 160 Ks. Doesn't look that nasty, does it? They have a 1200 meter, 7% climb, 6 Ks from the finish. The question, at least we thought before the stage, was could Colbrelli and Van Aert's teams drop the pure sprinters like Philipsen and Jakobsen? We have here an incredibly strong Jumbo-Visma squad with Laporte and Dennis, the new additions, Simon Yates and Adam Yates here for Bike Exchange and Ineos, Quintana, who's been lighting it up in February in the smaller French races. They rolled out, break went, didn't get much leash, because there was crosswind nervousness in this race. Ineos with Rowe, Van Baarle and co. Here you see the full Jumbo-Visma complement of riders. Ridiculous team. Half the battle with Paris is making it to the first mountain stage without having lost time, with narrow roads, crosswinds, bad weather, and we had that nervousness today. But they get respite through the towns. You see Ineos and Jumbo through the towns, they go slow and they move up to try and protect front position by fanning across the road, and then when they come out of those sheltered, protected areas, it lights up and strings out a little bit more, as does Citroën. We're trying something today with Oliver Naesen. They have Ben O'Connor here as their GC man, although I can't see him in the picture, so I'm not sure this was the best idea for him at least. They don't have a sprinter though, so maybe they're trying something with Tuze and Stan de Wolf. It eased off a little bit. Rowan Dennis omnipresent at the front of the bunch in a defensive role though, because Wout van Aert wasn't actually at the front with Roglic. Dennis seemed to be policing for a lot of this race the front, trying to make sure Roglic didn't miss a split or lose any time, which didn't happen. So with that lull, a break, another one went with Frison and Fedorov. Now this is a strong start list apparently. It's one of the strongest in a long time. McNulty and Almeida here for UAE, Colbrelli for Bahrain, as well as Haig, Sam Bennett for Bora Hansgrohe, Jakobsen, Philipsen, as I've already said, Adam Yates, who looked good at UAE. But eventually that lull ended. There's a circuit at the end of this stage with those punchy climbs, and Jumbo-Visma with 20 Ks to go took control at the front of the race and pretty much didn't leave that position. With just under 13 Ks to go, they turned left into an exposed section, and the fight to be front through the left turn was fierce here. I think Dennis pulled off after a long shift at the front, and then Mike Turnison lit it up. He sprints straight to the gutter on the right-hand side with Van Aert, Roglic, and I think Van Hooijdonk and Laporte behind him, and this whole bunch is strung out. And this is the key. Before this final 1200 meter climb, which as I said, you don't expect huge gaps on a climb like that at the first stage with good weather of a World Tour stage race, Jumbo putting all the other teams under pressure here, I think, made a massive difference for the climb to come. Ineos seemed to be caught napping, frankly. They did not have Martinez and Yates initially in good position. Yates did actually move up onto Roglic's wheel with 11.5 Ks to go. But before we even got to the final climb, where we thought, okay, Jumbo are going to light this up to drop Jakobsen and Philipsen, so Wout van Aert can win the sprint, we saw some signs of what could happen. Gaps opening up in front of the Ineos rider whilst Turnison is lighting it up, and then they turn left, go over a narrow bridge where it's pretty much impossible to move up. There's problems for the other teams before the climb even starts. DSM have 2 riders in the middle of the Jumbo train or just behind Wout van Aert. So when Nathan Van Hooijdonk does what resembles a cobbled climb classics full sprint lead out up the Côte de Breuil, Bois Robert, 1200 meters, 6%. All the other teams are hoping that those DSM riders can keep Primoz Roglic wheel, where Nathan flicks Christophe Laporte to pull. Dylan Van Baarle is already dropping for Ineos. I can't see Omar Freyler anywhere, and Adam Yates is left isolated when, again, the guy that nearly won Kona, Brussels Kona from a break on Sunday, top classics rider Christophe Laporte, lights it up with Van Aert on his wheel. All it will take is one person losing the wheel, and this race is going to go up the road, and that's what happens here. The 2 DSM riders lose the wheel of Primoz, Roglic and Quintana and Adam Yates are having to try and bridge around them. Maybe they couldn't have even bridged around them. When you cut to the overhead, you see Laporte's acceleration opens this gap up so much. The only rider on the Jumbo guys' wheel is next Stibar, and we still have 700 meters left in this climb. This damage was done in the first 600 meters because of the classic style sprint lead out. Jakobsen and Philipsen, forget about them. Wout van Aert looks behind, realizes they have a huge gap and it's just Stibar there. Roglic is thinking, I'm taking time on GC, and it's Adam Yates on the front of the peloton chasing with no domestiques there. Schachmann gone, Colbrelli was gone before the climb, and I think that's the key as Stibar's actually dropped. Laporte was on Stibar's wheel and had to close back to Van Aert and Roglic. If Jumbo hadn't lit it up in the crosswinds before this climb, I'm not sure this would have worked. As it happens, an unreal scenario eventuates where a three-man up team time trial of Roglic, Laporte and Wout van Aert goes over the top of the final climb. 5.5 Ks left to the finish, and they're thinking Roglic GC on a sprint stage, or at least a climby boy sprint stage. He's already gaining time before a long TT where he's probably the favourite to win the stage, and the peloton was in a shambles behind. Whilst, of course, these three were committed. Laporte couldn't pull initially, but eventually they get a three-man group going. And you've got to remember, Roglic is a truck on the flat. He might not give too much draft to the guys behind him, the two tall lads. Is Poulance, winner of La Guelia, pulling the peloton, who's kind of off his wheel behind. Trek have got Pedersen in the group, who would win the group sprint behind. Jumbo-Visma and Roglic were gone. We've had UAE 1-2-3 La Guelia, Pogačar 50k solo at Strada Bianca, but this display of team dominance from Jumbo-Visma in a World Tour race on the first stage, which wasn't even that hard parkour profile-wise, they made it that hard launching that final climb and the crosswinds before. Complete team performance. They go 1, 2, 3 in the stage. Laporte's first World Tour victory, moves over to Jumbo and can probably barely believe it, ahead of Roglic second, Wout van Aert third. I'm pretty sure, it's hard to know with these things, this is going to become an iconic photograph in cycling. Laporte taking the stage ahead of Roglic, Wout van Aert 19 seconds back to Latour, then Pedersen, Girmay, Garcia, Cortina, Wright, Phillips and Seneschal. But what a crazy opening to Paris-Nice. I don't have Tirreno Adriatico rights on this channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. We're covering every stage of Tirreno Adriatico there. But otherwise, I'll see you with the highlights of Stage 2 of Paris-Nice right here tomorrow. Ciao.